Now starting to bring in the light on those colors. Now back to my warm brush, if you want to call it, let's call it the warm brush, tucking that in underneath there just a little tiny bit. And back to my shadow brush, give it a tap and bring that shadow in. I'd like to thank my Process Art audience today, and today I'm going to show you how to handle something like this. It is the midsection of a tree. Hi, my name is Linda Lovisa, and today I am going to show you how to handle something like this. It's a ponderosa pine, but the midsection of a tree. So this can be very complicated when you first look at it, but let me show you how to simplify something like this. And this is a ponderosa pine tree, and I just loved how the light hit it in the early evening and giving you this beautiful light in this part of the tree. It was just, it's so special to be able to witness that. Now, this is from my kitchen window, by the way. I didn't have to go out to the woods for this one. And I wouldn't be able to capture this from below, like standing beneath the tree. So having that kitchen window at the right time, looking outside at the right time was perfect. So let's get some of this down on canvas. So I gave my canvas a red tonal wash. There are lots of hints of red, orange in this particular image, so that's a great start. So I'm going to start with the tree to start off with. I'm going to use a flat brush. I'm going to use something with some flexibility. So notice how long the bristles are on this brush, and that's what's going to give you flexibility. Now let's get that. I'm using red light, going right for the gusto. Red light right off the bat. I'm going to draw with the red light. Here we go. Let's get this drawn in. Sometimes I use a little chalk on my canvas to get it started, but not today. I'm just going to go right for it. And here's one of the main branches here. And we have another branch that kind of comes down here. And we've got this branch over here. Let's bring that down. And there we go. Let's bring this one down. Now, those of you who are watching out there, I hope that you're enjoying your day. What time do you watch my videos at? That's something I'm curious about. So, do you watch it mid-afternoon? Do you watch it in the morning? Do you watch them in the evening? Yeah, let me know. Are you watching it with a coffee or a glass of wine? I would love to know. And just bringing in that yellow deep with the red light is giving me that beautiful orange color. And I'm sure some of you have noticed my beautiful bouquet this afternoon. And this was from my husband. This one's not from my garden, but aren't the colors gorgeous? And this vase actually was a gift from a friend, and it came from Italy. It's very precious. Let's get back to my tree. There we go. Now I'm picking up the cadmium red deep. And I'm going to block some of that in there too. And you're probably thinking, I don't see any red there at all. That's okay, because neither do I. So I don't see any red there at all either. But I just want to get a feel for the painting, so I will sometimes use different reds to just kind of get a feel for it. So it almost becomes part of the shadow color for me when I'm bringing that in. And notice how you know, there's a shadow here on the tree, and we've got that branch that comes out over here, and we've got a branch over here. This branch is in the light, so let's add some yellow like that. Got a branch down here. Let's add some more of that yellow. Bring that over here. There we go. That's the yellow deep, by the way, cadmium yellow deep with the red light. And it has a little bit of that red deep because I picked up the red deep up here. There we go. Bring that down and add a splash over here. I'm really going into this really nice and free today. And let's bring in that branch. It actually extends all the way out. So let's do that. Now I'm picking up the red deep, and I'm going to add the shadow under that branch, like so. It's a little bit premature, but that's okay. You know, sometimes you have to just do how you feel. Now, if you're ever feeling like you don't know what to paint, I get that all the time. How do you know what to paint? You paint every day. Like, don't you get tired of painting? Like, how do you know what you're going to paint today? I actually don't really know what I'm going to paint most days. I just kind of pick one of my canvases that's just started, and it depends on my mood. So if I'm in a really happy mood, I might choose really bright colors to start off with, like today. Or if I'm feeling like I'm in a detail day. To be honest, I'm not in a detail day most days. I really like free, more this style. Just kind of get the color on there. It's more about the color and not so much about the detail. But sometimes you have to, you know, be in that detail mood. So when I'm in that detail mood, what do? I put some nice music on, and I get myself really nice and comfortable with, you know, a cup of tea or coffee, and depending on the time of the day, if it's the afternoon, then it's a tea. If it's the morning, it's a coffee. And then what I do is I make myself really nice and comfortable, and that's when the small brushes come out. And those small brushes, you know, I find that if I have some meditative music on, that's perfect. And that's how I like to do my detail work. Now so here we've got this beautiful glowing color on this tree. Now this is not done by any stretch, but we've got some nice color on there. Now let's deal with this tree. Totally different coloring because it's in the shadow of things, in the shade of things, and I'm going to start off with the red medium and cobalt blue. Look at that. I love doing that. Look at the color is so gorgeous. It's so pretty. And look at the contrast. Isn't that great? That is one of my very favorite things to do. I have a lot of favorite things, by the way, but this is sort of signature colors for me as a painter. Most people recognize my work from my color palette. And the more you paint and the more you get out there, people will start to recognize your work from the stroke work that you do, the color choices you make. And it's really interesting how sometimes I have people come up to me and say, "Oh, I saw your art in the gallery this week. Your colors are changing a little bit," because they've been following me for a number of years, and they say, "Oh, your color palette has changed." And it's not really necessarily that my color palette has changed, it's just they're seeing a different side of me. And remember, I was talking about moods. So I have many different moods. Sometimes they're in the softer side with lots of tints. Other times they're more on the contemporary side like this. Sometimes I paint a little bit more realistically, sometimes more contemporary. Depends on how I am today. At this moment, I'm more contemporary. Now, isn't that interesting? So let's continue. And this is my favorite headspace, if you want to call it that, where I'm just adding color and playing with color, moving color around. Now I'm going to bring in that shadow color up here. And bring that down a little bit. There we go. And bring that over here. Now this branch is much lighter in color, and so is this one. So I'm just going to pick up some of that yellow medium. Just going to add some light there. And I'm going to add some light here. And some light here. So this is just with the yellow medium. Now we've got some light right here. And this is the shadow of this branch right here that I don't have in yet. Let's bring it in. You can do this too. And you know, there's, as long as you're familiar with color, you've got so many different options. It's just so nice. Pull that up and move it around. And the best way to become familiar with color is to use lots of color and use lots of paint while you're doing it, because then you have that blending power. I sometimes will get a comment, oh, I don't know how you can blend for so long on your canvas without, you know, using gel mediums or water with your paint. The key thing is to make sure that you're picking up enough paint. And if you're picking up enough paint, then you're not going to have that problem of the difficulty of blending. So let's bring that down a little bit. There we go. And let's go back over here. Now, this tree here, I need some white added to it. So I'm picking up the warm white. So I'm just going to pick up the warm white and start to add where the patches of light are coming through the branches. And you're probably thinking, okay, well, that is not a purple tree back there. It looks gray to me. Well, it is gray, but let's make it a purple tree for today. How's that? And wait till you see, when I start to add that background, how all this plays. Oh my goodness, you're going to love it. Well, at least I think you're going to love it. There's another branch. A bit more light. So let's add some more light. And notice I've changed my stroke work to more of a vertical, slightly curved stroke work. Bring that over here. And bring that down. Some of that light at the bottom corner here. Okay, so let's switch things up a little bit. Grab another brush. All right, another flat brush. And I'm picking up cadmium yellow light. Wow, look at that. Holy moly, that's bright. Now that's just straight cadmium yellow light, by the way. And look at that. Wow. Is that ever wild? I like being wild sometimes, and this is my way of being wild. And here we go. Let's bring more of that light right here. That intense color. and up here as well. Now, you might think that this is a little bit of shock factor, but it's actually not. If you go to my website, you'll see some of my paintings that are painted like this. And they're large paintings like this, like, I don't know, 3 by 4 feet, or, you know, I even have some that I've painted that were like 7 by 5 feet. And they all start out this way, and then I start to layer. But getting that contrast in there is just, it just creates its own magic. It really does. Now I want you to notice something here, like look how this tree really pops with that yellow right here. And this tree is in the violet tones and, you know, pulling towards the gray violets. It's a beautiful complement for that background. When I start to add the green, guess what? This is going to be complemented by the greens. So that is the joy of playing with your complements. So let's add some more color here. And this is still the cadmium yellow light. And look at that. All of a sudden we've got this beautiful sunshine coming through in this painting. There we go. Oops. Let's get that in there. And notice how I've added the shadow color from here into my beautiful red pine tree. Switching brushes, bringing in that light. There we go. A little bit magical here. Let's bring that in there. And add some more of that yellow light. Now, wow, already. Look at that. When I step back, I just love looking at the painting once I step back. Now remember, on this canvas, I did the red light tonal wash, and this is the cadmium yellow light being applied over top. And if I was to hold this nice and close, or if you're zooming in nice and close, you can see how the tonal wash is such an important part of the actual painting, because you can see that glow underneath, and that's a positive thing, by the way, not a negative thing. You want to try and keep some of that if you can in the painting process. So let's get back to it. Okay, so this is where we're at. Now, the next part of the magic happens. I'm going to pick up the yellow medium, add it to the yellow light on top of the yellow light, like so, and over here as well. And down here I'm going to add the cadmium yellow deep. And you're probably thinking, why do that? You know, just start off with, you know, the green you're looking for. Well, no, this is wait and see. You'll see how this works. So I'm still adding a bit of the yellow deep down here and over here. And I've mentioned this once before in my classes, where layering various colors together really make beautiful blends. And this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm layering various yellows together, one on top of the other, and then when I get into the blues, I'm going to get some beautiful greens. Let's start with the ultramarine blue, and I'm going to start right down here. And I'm going to pick up more ultramarine blue as I go along. I'm looking for the dark areas first. So that's why I deposited the cadmium yellow deep in certain areas, because I want some of those darker values to start coming through first. There we go. Bring that in. Now this is just the beginning, you know that, right? But you know, these little exercises, I guess you could say, are to sort of inspire you to try different ways of different approaches. And I'm hoping that this encourages you to try it, whether you're a beginner or someone who's more experienced and who's looking for something a little bit different. And notice how my stroke work is playing with the color. Here we go. Let's go to the other side over here. Now I'm going to bring in the darker green over here. And over here, down here. I'm not over blending, I'm not mixing like a ton, you know, like a lot of mixing. I'm applying the color, moving it slightly, looking for the various values of green. There we go. Let's bring it to the side over here, like that. Okay, now I want some up here. And I'm going to add a little bit up here. Not too much. So you'll see how this underpainting here works when I start to add the greens on top. It becomes part of that shadow. Now I want lighter greens over here. Over here. So I'm going to switch my blue. And I'm just going to offload a little bit of that paint on the side here. My reason for that is I've got quite a bit of ultramarine blue on there, and I want to pick up a lighter blue. So let's offload some of that darker. Now let's bring in some of that brighter. So picking up the manganese blue, and I'm just going to dot it in a few places here. There we go. Now I've got it dotted. Okay, so our light is coming through, so let's get that feeling. The light coming through, picking up some of the yellow medium with the manganese blue, more yellow medium. There we go. Now, am I doing like little pine needles? Like that? No. I'm stroking in the pine needles. So I'm thinking of how that looks and trying to paint it in, I'm trying to think of the right way, just kind of getting the feeling of how those pine needles are hanging off those branches. So I'm stroking in the direction of the pine needles, the way they're growing. Instead of doing every tiny little pine needle, I'm wisping it. I guess that's a good way to put it. There we go. See how that light is coming through there. And of course there'll be many adjustments to this area here that I'm working on as the painting evolves. There we go. We have a very, very happy robin in our neighborhood right now. And every day he's in our pine trees singing his song. And this morning he started at 3:45. I tell you, 6 o'clock in the morning is okay because I get up at 6 anyway. But 3:45, that was a little bit early. Had to close the window because he was so loud. I love the birds. We have several bird baths and really enjoy watching them in the evening and in the morning as well when they're taking a bath, or, you know, just having a nice long drink. One of the birds that I hadn't seen at the bird bath before appeared a couple of nights ago, and it was a western bluebird. Oh my goodness. His coloring was so beautiful. So that's one of the reasons why we love having the trees in our yard, is we have so many birds that enjoy the trees. And of course, with this hot weather coming up, the Okanagan Valley is going to be having a bit of a heat wave coming. The bird bath is really appreciated by all the birds. Now, let's see where I'm at. I need to stand back. Okay, I'm on the right track. So let's continue. There we go. Start to bring some light over here. There we are. So now I'm starting to bring in some of the texture of the bark on the tree. And this is not really the detail stage, just so you know. I'm sort of expressing it through my stroke work. Like so. Bring that up a little bit more. Pick up some of that cadmium red light. Let's bring some of that in there. Some splashes of that red light. Beautiful color. It's one of my favorite colors, especially for doing the ponderosa pine, because they tend to have that reddish bark. Pull that down a bit more light down here. Now I need some of that shadow color, so I'm just going to tap my brush on my palette because I just want to push the color forward. Bring some of that there. Actually, I need a little bit more color on there, so let's pick up some paint. I'm picking up the ultramarine blue this time with the cadmium red medium. Just going to bring that in there and start to bring in some of the suggestions of other shadows from the branches that are below that you can't really see. And now, this can happen to anybody. So what's happening here is I have a shadow and I have a branch, and the branch, this shadow is from this branch, but it almost looks like two branches. So how do you fix that? Okay, so I need this to be the shadow for sure, and this is the branch. This branch is over here more. So now how am I going to get that to look like the shadow from the branch? So let's go back to my, let's call this the warm brush with warm color. And I'm going to start to bring that in a little bit more and bring that down. And I'm actually going to have another brush. I'm going to start another brush here. One needs a dip because it's a dry brush. And I'm going to pick up some of the unbleached white. Here we go. Now this area is a little bit wet because I'm wetting it. And I'm going to bring that over. Just like that. There we go. Let's get that in there. All right, so I'm going to apply some of the unbleached white here where it's starting to bring in more light onto the branches. And over here, where this branch is connected, I'm changing my stroke work. Bringing it down like so. And there are some shadows on that branch, so I want to make sure that I don't, you know, sort of forget that part. Now this branch here has got quite a bit of light on it. I'm going to tap my brush, bring that light, because it's bright light, and over here as well, and here as well. Now starting to bring in the light on those colors. Now back to my warm brush, if you want to call it, let's call it the warm brush, tucking that in underneath there just a little tiny bit. And back to my shadow brush, give it a tap and bring that shadow in like that. Bring it down and give it another tap. And let's bring that over here because this part of the branch is mostly in shade, reflecting from above. And now remember how I picked up some of the white earlier. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that, and I'm just going to do something like this because it's not a unified dark shadow everywhere. Tap my brush onto my palette here. Just get a little bit of darker value. There we go. Bring that in. We've got that there. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Okay. I will need more adjustments later, but now we're starting to see it happen. I love that when that happens. There we go. I'm going to bring a little bit of that up here. Not too much. I want it to compete with this over here. All right. Have I ever got a mitt full? This is quite common when I'm working. Let's get back to the I can switch from one color to another without too much trouble. When you use multiple brushes, I honestly feel it's the only way to paint, because the time that you spend rinsing your brush constantly is time wasted. Not only is it paint wasted, it's also time wasted. Because if I had to rinse my brush, go into my water bucket, pick up more paint, try to find the right color, and start again with the layering, my goodness, it would make painting not quite so much fun. So when I see something that I need to adjust, I have the brush right in my hand or sitting on my palette, and I can adjust it in a jiffy. And that's how I love to paint, where I don't have to. I'm just going to pick up a tiny bit of water there. I let it dry a little too long. Let's tap it. That's how I like to paint, where it's not interrupting the flow, the magic. So if you're having to rinse your brush all the time, you're interrupting the magic. That's how I feel anyway. Let's just bring a little bit of that on the edge there. Okay. Now, I need to step back once again. Okay. Yes, it's starting to happen. Let's pick up our green brush here. Bring a little bit more of that green up here. And now you can see how I'm starting to cut in with, this is called negative painting, by the way, with just random little shapes, sort of suggesting the feeling of, several pine needles clustered together. I'm just using the edge of my brush. A little bit more red. So this is a pinky purple now because it's got a little bit of the red deep on that brush, which I really like to use that combination together. I don't know, it's just a really nice combination. And different combinations come along from exploration, by the way. So don't be afraid to explore the colors that you have in your sketchbook or on a blank canvas, however you wish to explore. It's important. Hey, did you see how I flipped? So I was going like this, right? And then I just went like that. And no, I don't have any baton training, but it kind of comes in handy when you're painting. So I can flip my brush and do something like that. And flip again as I'm going along. I do it spontaneously. I don't even have to think about it. It just happens. But I just thought I would point that out. I think it's kind of a cool thing. There we go. So let's bring that color in there. So here we go. Now, I'm just going to set some of these brushes down because this is ridiculous, the amount of brushes that I have in my hand right now. So what I do when I set them down is I just give them a dip, and not over, don't over dip because then it'll be too wet. You just want to hydrate it just ever so slightly. And this one I did just a few minutes ago, so I can set it down. Oh, that feels better. Now, picking up red light once again, and the yellow medium, and I'm just going to go back into here, cut in again, and a little bit of the yellow deep, cadmium yellow deep. And let's bring that branch. I'm going to pick up the unbleached white once again, just to bring that forward. The light is hitting there, and it's attached to the tree right here. I know it's hard to see in this photo that I have. There we go. Now, what's missing here? So that this reads right, this branch here also is casting a shadow right here. That's from this branch here, this little tiny branch, casting a shadow. So now it becomes part of the nitty-gritty of the painting process, looking for all those tiny little things that make a difference. And how the branch is attached. And let's go over here and bring the light over here because we need to. And now, I think that you have a pretty good idea on how I would handle something like this. And it's, like I said, it's a different style than I've shown before. It's very contemporary, yet it still has that natural feeling to it in a way where I'm just exaggerating the colors in nature to create this painting. I'm just going to bring a little bit more warmth here, cut into that, bringing in a little bit more detail. And there we go. I'd like to thank my Process Art audience for joining me today. And before I log off, I guess you could say, I'd like to thank the new subscribers. And I hope that you enjoyed my channel and that you will continue to subscribe and invite your friends. Bye for now.